What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to be previewing the Week 5 matchup between the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. A big matchup for both of these teams. They both come in at 2-2, desperately needing a victory this week. The Giants, of course, sit one game back of the Dallas Cowboys. The Vikings, the same story. They remain a game back of both the Green Bay Packers as well as the Chicago Bears, and they lost to both of those two teams heads up. So they really need this game, the Vikings. They can't drop to 2-3 in that highly competitive NFC North. And I didn't even mention the Lions, who are 2-1-1. But very close there in the North, close there in the East. Both these teams really need to come out with a victory if they intend to compete for the playoffs this year. A huge game for both the Vikings and the Giants. As far as the storylines go, we'll start with Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur was the offensive coordinator with the Vikings just 2 years ago. And he did so good there. That's why he got the head coaching job with the New York Giants. He led them to an NFC title appearance with Case Keenum and was largely credited for the success of that offense that year, when Keenum came in as a journeyman quarterback and was able to propel them to a playoff appearance and almost a Super Bowl appearance. So Shurmur knows these players pretty well. He coached Stefon Diggs, right? Everybody, Adam Thielen, right? Dalvin Cook. He was part of that. So he knows that. So that is a bit of a storyline in this game, and maybe Shurmur could use that to a bit of his advantage. We'll have to wait and see. Of course, the players know Shurmur's offense as well. So we'll see how it all plays out. But that is an interesting storyline going into the game. The Giants coming off of 2 victories. I don't know if you could consider them impressive. The Bucs victory looks a lot more impressive off of last week's performance, where the Bucs went up against the Rams and put up 55 points. The Giants, of course, held them to 3 points in the second half, and the Giants played great in that game, and it propelled them to a Week 4 victory against the banged-up Redskins. So that's why I don't put a lot of stock into that victory as well. Redskins were banged up without McLaurin, 2 or 3 players out on their offensive line. Giants took advantage of it, though, and that's what good teams do. They beat up on teams they're supposed to, and that's what they did. However, the offense did look sloppy. The O-line continued to succeed, didn't give up a sack, but they did turn the ball over way too much. So the Giants will have to clean that up. Daniel Jones cannot turn the ball over in this football game, as the Giants fumbled it twice and threw 2 picks in that last contest. So Daniel Jones will have to be efficient with the football, and they'll have to try to establish a running game, which will not be easy against this stout Minnesota Viking defense. The Vikings, of course, like I said, lost 2 divisional games. They come in at 2-2. The offense is really where they've struggled. The defense continues to be a strength. The running game continues to be a strength, but the passing game has been a big problem, and they'll try to take advantage of the New York Giants secondary, a secondary that has gotten better over the last 2 weeks. But even in that Bucs game, we saw Janoris Jenkins get torched. So it'll be interesting to see how Betcher goes up against this offense. I think they're going to try to make it a focal point to stop the run, because that's been the bread and butter of the Minnesota Vikings. I expect Kirk Cousins to try to air it out a little more this week, as he came on air and he apologized to not get the ball to Adam Thielen. He's just too nice for me. But we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this matchup. But before we do, I wanted to go over the injury report for both of these teams. So we'll start with the Minnesota Vikings. And for the Minnesota Vikings, you've got Anthony Harris. He hasn't practiced this week with the quad injury, the safety. Stefon Diggs has been out for non-injury related problems, and Stefon Diggs is another storyline in this game. He's kind of been a distraction for this team. He's not happy there. He doesn't feel like he's being utilized properly, so he has not practiced yet this week as well. Josh Klein with a concussion has been a limited participant. The guard, Garrett Bradbury, this year's first-round pick, has been out has been limited. The center with a shoulder injury. Kentrell Brothers has been wrist and hamstring injury. Linebacker, limited participant as well. Xavier Rhodes has been a full participant in practices with a knee injury. So expect Rhodes to be out there. For the Giants, you got Wayne Gallman. He's been a limited participant in practice. I think he'll be out there, the running back. Saquon Barkley, we've heard the reports on him. I don't expect him to play, but it's encouraging to see that he will probably be back before you know it. Nate Solder, limited participant in practice. He'll be playing, I think. Same with Kevin Zeitler with the shoulder injury. He has not practiced, but it was the same thing last week. He'll be out there. I expect Ogletree to miss the game with his injury. Lorenzo Carter has been limited, and Tay Davis is limited coming back from that concussion. So those are the injury notes for both the Giants and the Vikings. So without further ado, let's jump into the matchup. Let's jump in, and we'll start with the Vikings. Vikings are returning 3 Pro Bowlers from last year's team. They had 4 last year, but of course lost one of them to free agency. So the 3 returning Pro Bowlers are Harrison Smith, Hunter, and Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, of course, a great wide receiver. Hunter, I think he had 16 sacks or so with the Vikings last year. He had a great year. And Harrison Smith has been one of the better safeties in football. And the strength of this team is on the defensive end. Make no mistake about it. But we'll start with the offense there and Kirk Cousins. That has been a big weakness for this football team this year. Cousins coming in with a 65% completion percentage. He's only thrown for 735 yards in 4 contests. The first game of the year, he only had 10 passing attempts. They have not been able to get it going in the air with 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. With the running game, Dalvin Cook has been a huge strength. 410 yards on the ground just for Cook with 5 touchdowns and 114 yards in the passing game. The 2 leading receivers, as you would not be that surprised, are Adam Thielen and Stefon Diggs. Thielen with 179 yards in the air with 2 touchdowns. Diggs with 209 and a score. But like I said, the strength is really the defense. And when you look at it, they are phenomenal at creating turnovers. This team, through the first 4 games, has created 12 turnovers. And they've recovered 9 fumbles. 9 fumbles, and they've gotten after the quarterback. They have 11 sacks through 4 games. The leading guy is Hunter. No surprise to me. He has 3 sacks. Linval Joseph with 2, and Everson Griffin with 2. They have the 5th-ranked defense in points against, the 6th-ranked defense in yards against. So they're doing the job, and their run defense has been incredible. That is the strength of this Vikings team. They're going to try to win the time of possession there with the defense. They have held their opponents in check on the ground to just 3.7 yards per carry, and they are averaging 5.2 on the ground. So if they can continue to do that, that is how they'll win this football game against the New York Giants. Giants have to make it a focal point to get 7 or 8 in the box on defense and make Kirk Cousins beat you, and he very well may. The Giants, of course, if they one-on-one coverage against Diggs and Thielen, you're going to have some trouble. The Giants are going to have to get home with the blitzes. You know, I don't know if they're going to send 5 or 6 or 7. You're not going to be able to get there with 3 guys. This is a very good offensive line. They have a very good running game. This is not the Washington Redskins. Okay? But Cook is the bread and butter of this offense. Make no mistake about it. They're going to try to establish the run to set up the pass, but I expect them to take shots on this New York Giants secondary. An imperative thing in this game is stopping that run. If you stop that run and put Cousins into those 3rd and long situations, 2nd and long situations, the Giants stand a good chance to win this game. Easier said than done, though, the way Cook's been running the football. Hopefully, the New York Giants can get it done. On offense, like I said, the strength of this Vikings team has been the ability to create turnovers. And last week, the New York Giants turned it over way too much. 4 turnovers. Well, the fact that they've created 11, the Vikings, there's a good chance they're going to be able to create some turnovers in this game. The Giants cannot do that. You cannot put the ball on the ground. Both running backs last week fumbled, and Jones made some throws he shouldn't have made. And against this defense, you're going to have to help him out as much as you possibly can. You got to. They have to establish that ground game. That offensive line, which has been impressive, is going to get a big test this week against this front 7 of the Minnesota Vikings. And if they can establish a run, which will not be easy, like I said, 3.7 yards per carry, it will help out Daniel Jones. Of course, Jones has Golden Tate returning this week. And a big strength of Daniel Jones and this Giants offense over the last 2 weeks has been 3rd down conversions. They've converted 54% as opposed to 23% the first 2 weeks. Well, Golden Tate should only help that. That is his strength. The slot receiver, he's great at breaking tackles and creating yards after the catch. So that will be a big addition to this Giants offense this week. Of course, they'll be without Saquon Barkley, so they will have to rely on Daniel Jones' arm and legs a lot of times in this game to move the chains. And if they can move the chains and create an advantage in the time of possession, the Giants will probably win this football game. But they cannot turn it over. They have to establish a ground game, and they have to force Kirk Cousins to throw the football. Cousins has not been the same quarterback he's been with the Washington Redskins, and even then he didn't win big games. But he has struggled so far this year. Giants have to find a way to take advantage of that. I expect Betcher to send a lot of blitzes, try to get home with the blitz, and if he does that, the Giants will create some turnovers in this game. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But the way Zimenez has been playing lately, the way Marcus Golden's been playing, the Giants do have some encouraging factors going into this game. Another guy that should be touched on is DeAndre Baker. Baker over the last 2 weeks has been great, and he went up against Chris Godwin, who last week tore the Rams up. Couldn't do anything against Baker. I expect Baker to continue to play pretty well. Now, he's going up against a very good receiver this week. I don't know if he's going to be guarding Thielen. I don't know if he's going to be guarding Diggs. If Diggs plays, I expect him to. But regardless, you got to have him in the bump and run coverage. He's not good in zone protection. So that is what I expect Betcher and the Giants to do. And it'll be interesting to see what game plan he comes out with. Last week, he didn't blitz as much. He only sent 3 or 4 guys a lot of those plays. You're not going to be able to do that as often against this Vikings team and expect to create pressure. Of course, the Vikings offensive line was a bit of a Achilles heel for them last year, right? That's what everybody said. So you may be able to get after the quarterback, but they'll be able to establish that ground game. Got to send some run blitzes, got to stop the run, and then try to get after the quarterback. It'll be interesting to see what the Vikings do and what the Giants do pertaining to that. Will the Vikings open it up a little bit, knowing that the Giants are going to try to limit the run, or will they stick to their bread and butter? And will the Giants blitz more often than not, or will they, try to mix it up a little bit? I'm really looking forward to that matchup. In terms of the game, how I see it playing out, the Giants coming in at 2-2, they've been hot. The Vikings, with a loss to the Bears, they're on the road. The team does not travel that well historically. So, I do think the Giants stand a chance in this game. Vegas has the Vikings as a 5-point favorite. I think it's going to be closer than that. And I'm going to have the Giants, in the end, pulling out a narrow victory and pulling up the upset. Now, you could call me a homer, but I picked against the Giants 3 out of the first 4 weeks this year. I have a feeling that this defense is starting to turn a corner. Now, I don't think they're a great defense yet. But I think the Vikings offense is struggling outside of the running game, and I think they'll be able to create some turnovers against Kirk Cousins. I have the Giants winning this one. 23-20. New York Giants win by a field goal at home against the Minnesota Vikings and get the 3-2 in on the season. I can't wait to see how it plays out. Should be a great game. But as always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.